guys know good and well that this right here is absolutely eating these people up.
Tonight, CBS projected Donald Trump the winner in Arizona, giving him a complete electoral vote sweep of the 7 battleground states. With a final tally of 312 electoral votes, Republicans scored their biggest White House win in 36 years. Republicans will also control the Senate with at least 52 seats, and there are 2 races that have not yet been called by CBS News.
I just want to give some free advice to the white progressives, particularly white progressive women who may be thinking about marching against the Trump victory, maybe putting back on the P-word hats and doing that thing. I would just say probably don't send any of those invites to any black women you know. I'm just going to tell you right now, they're not coming. I'm pretty sure black women have resigned from the Save America Coalition, Save Democracy Coalition, and definitely the Save the Democratic Party Coalition.
Is that if you look at the data in this election, the amount of reach of all of these alternative, I'm talking about the whole podcast space mostly, but also social media, the interviews that Trump did, not starting with Rogan, but Theo Vaughn and all of these other things he did, incredible reach compared to
that little bit that came on after The Girl Who Needs the Bronzer. Yeah, that little bit, that's what we're going to be discussing in this video here, because the mainstream media is calling for platforms to be censored, meaning platforms like, say, YouTube channels. And, of course, they also want all alt tech censored as well as Twitter. Does not be sore. I mean, I don't know how to put that, but it seems to me like these right here are people who are absolute sore losers. Now, guys, I've talked about this before, and I'll say it once again. If you take away the advantages that these people have, you will see that in a stand-up fight, they really and truly aren't crap. I say they aren't crap rather than aren't shit, because for some odd reason, something was telling me to, how do I say, censor my own language, which of course I don't really and truly want to do. But once again, here we are. And I'm telling you that without these advantages, these people really and truly ain't shit. But still, though, that right there is not the point of this video. The point, of course, is to talk about social media, its influence, and how it was that President Trump utilized social media, and why it is that these people want social media suddenly censored. Now, you guys obviously heard that little bit from Bill Maher. You had this guy talking about, we don't have a Fox News, we don't have... Shut up. You have MSDNC. You have a bunch of online leftist influencers. You also have CNN. You have CBS. You have ABC. Speaking of ABC, I know that it hurt John Krall to do this.
For Trump, he locks in a sweeping victory in every single battleground state. And Trump did more than that. He made big gains with young voters and with Latinos, doing better among Hispanic voters than any Republican presidential candidate since the first exit polls were conducted in 1976. He even did better among women than when he ran against Joe Biden. He also made significant gains in some of the most democratic places in the country, doing better in places like Brooklyn, New Jersey, and Chicago. And in deep blue California, Donald Trump is on track to do better than any Republican in 2 decades. And he was running against a Californian. California voters also rejected liberal policies on taxes, rent control, and crime. They voted overwhelmingly to approve Proposition 36, which imposes tougher penalties for shoplifting and drug possession. Both the mayor of San Francisco and the liberal district attorney in Los Angeles were voted out, a rejection of liberal policies, particularly on crime, in some of the most liberal jurisdictions in the United States. Regardless of what you think about the outcome, whether you are happy about it or fearful, this week was a victory for democracy. Turnout was near record highs, and when the votes were counted, the losing candidate didn't cry foul or make false allegations of election fraud or try to overturn the will of the voters. She gave a gracious concession speech, and the outgoing president promised to ensure a smooth and peaceful transfer of power, with Biden and Trump scheduled to meet at the White House on Wednesday.
I don't know if you guys called it right there at the very end. That right there is their way of still trying to say that we are better than you conservatives because we conceded. We're gonna hand things over, even though there is this certain guy at CNN who decided to say this here today.
That is my question. I'll start with you.
Joe Biden has been a phenomenal president. He's lived up to so many of the promises he's made. There's one promise left that he could fulfill, being a transitional figure. He could resign the presidency in the next 30 days, make Kamala Harris the president of the United States.
Whoa.
It would absolve her
Wow.
from being able to, from having to oversee the January 6th transition, right, of her.
I did tell you guys that there was going to be an attempt to try to make her president before Trump got inserted in as president, because of course we all know that he won. So yeah, I would be on the lookout for that. By the way, that is one way that they would try to flip everything, but I would find it very hard for them to do, especially given the fact that Republicans will maintain control of Congress, and of course they've got more overall state delegations in case this thing goes to a 12th Amendment vote. And of course, to go on top of that, Republicans have the Senate. 53 seats at this moment in time, or it's about to be 53 once they officially project Dave McCormick winning his seat too. Now, the thing was Kerry Lake, on the other hand, I'm not going to get too much into that because once again, it's frustrating. But then again, though, I'm just not going to get into that right there because I don't feel like getting in trouble. But the point is this right here. Social media is what the former president utilized to get elected president. And of course, as you guys can see, people are somewhat salty about this. Go back to the very, very beginning of the video. And of course, that was a little bit that I had borrowed from my previous video that I did on Bill Maher, basically giving the Democrats a browbeating on how it was that they lost. But we're talking about social media. Now, I want you guys to just kind of picture this. It's January the 7th, 2021. It's the day after that day that the Democratic Party ran on. And the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, is banned from Twitter. Okay, he is banned from Twitter. At the time, he was still the sitting president of the United States. And of course, for the next 13 days, he would not have a Twitter account. He'd not be able to post on Twitter. He wouldn't be able to post until this year. And of course, he is back on Twitter posting tweets, thank God, because his tweets are absolutely hilarious. But of course, Donald Trump, he had actually utilized Twitter to try to get his message out to the people, the online world. Now, I have said this before on several occasions, that the online world is not the actual real world. And I do say that it is not the real world, and I do in fact feel that it is not the real world. However, the thing is this right here. You can still shape opinion with the utilization of platforms like, say, Twitter or Truth Social or Getter or right here on YouTube. You can still help shape opinions. You can put people in the right frame of mind. You can also give them adequate information. It is, in fact, a useful tool. As a matter of fact, I think people panicked at the prospect of the internet, especially seeing how it was that it was the Democrats who were mostly using the internet. They were saying that, look, this player is probably going to change politics. And it's probably going to help Democrats get elected and own the country electorally for probably the next 20 or 30 years, maybe even longer than that. However, that's not been the case. Now, I started out by talking about 1/7 the day after. And of course, that goes back to when they banned the former president. And they were also banning all sorts of other conservative accounts. There was also the stuff involving Reddit, which, by the way, I'll leave this video right here from PaxTube in the description box, because even though it is old, it gives you an idea of exactly how bad the censorship was. They went after the Donald win. Tim Pool did a lot of videos on that as well. It was a pretty effective subreddit on Reddit. The fact of the matter is this here. Republicans, conservatives were getting better at the online game. They were countering the left online. And, of course, they were getting their messages out. And they were also being much, much more persuasive. Now, if you really want to get technical on how it was or when it was that conservatives started doing a lot better, all you need to do is go look at the conservative YouTube channels and when they started. You could argue that the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, which I'm not the biggest fan of Shapiro. I agree with him on about 95% of issues, but I've never really truly been a fan of him personally. The Blaze Media, they had YouTube. You also had Steven Crowder, who at the time was working with the Blaze, because that's where a lot of Crowder was actually under. You had a lot of conservative content. So of course, the left had them as well, and we'll speak more about the left in Tuesday's videos, because there are some leftist YouTubers out there who are panicking about their subscriber counts suddenly going down. But still, though, that video will come out later on this week. Also, not to mention the fact that I believe that Cenk Uygur is going through a bit of a humiliation ritual, which I will talk about that on Tuesday as well. I'm going to wrap up the content for the next couple of days. So, yeah, we got a lot to post. The thing is this right here. Conservatives began to get better at the online game roughly right around the time when Donald Trump came around, roughly 2013, 14, 15 timeframe. And then, of course, it picked up a lot of steam when Trump was in office. And then out of the middle of nowhere, conservatives suddenly found themselves getting censored. So how do you beat this? Well, you got to get around this, and you got to find other ways of getting around this. And, of course, it's exactly what Donald Trump did when he chose to go to the realm of podcasting, or in this very funny little bit that I'm about to show you from a guy named John Talks Too. I advise you guys go check out his channel. It suddenly hit Van Jones in the face that the Democrats were going to be screwed going forward, because they don't seem to understand that podcasting is the way to go.
And here's how we got beat. We got beat because the Republicans and conservatives built a different media system that had to do with online, had to do with podcasts, had to do with streaming platforms, and they were spending their money there. We were laughing at them and knocking on doors in Philadelphia and Detroit. It's like, there's no Trump people. They're not dropping literature. They're not knocking on doors.
Well, in fact, it was laughing like, oh, Elon Musk and Charlie Kirk with their PACs don't know what they're doing.
We were making fun of Donald Trump for having thrown away his ground game and doing some weird stuff online. We thought that they were idiots. It turned out we were the idiots.
I'm retarded?
We woke up in a body bag.
Donald J. Trump is now president of the United States.
Because while we were knocking on doors, they were making these phones into 24-hour-a-day political weapons for themselves. And so we got outflanked, outplayed, outbeat by people who told us the whole time that they knew what they were doing. And we thought that they were idiots. It turned out we were the idiots.
I'm stupid, you're smart, I was wrong, you were right, you're very good looking, I'm not attractive.
I'll link the channel in the description box for you guys. But you guys can obviously see it's starting to dawn on these people that mainstream media is not exactly, how do I say, conventional anymore. Or maybe it's a little bit too conventional. Of course, the Democratic Party owns the mainstream media. But of course, that right there leads us to the reason why it is that social media was used and why it was so effective for the Trump team. It was Trump's son, Barron, who made the suggestion to him that podcast, or told him he should go on podcast because podcasting was the thing. You see, when you go online, when you get on an actual YouTube channel and you talk to somebody who's a big YouTuber or a big time podcaster, someone like, say, a Joe Rogan or a Theo Vaughn or a Andrew Schultz, or who else? Even Charlemagne the Fraud, who Trump did not go on his show. You get much, much larger exposure to a different audience. And of course, the same said audience that he's speaking to, that right there being the former president, he's reaching out to brand new voters. By the way, a lot of those new voters were voters that Scott Pressler registered in Pennsylvania. He registered, the Republicans did a great job of registering brand new voters altogether, but of course, a lot of these new voters that they registered were what? Young men. Now, before I go any further, I want to say this really quick. I want to go ahead and preface this next bit that you guys are about to see from Steve Kornacki, and of course, I want you guys to pay very close attention because it's not just young men that Donald Trump got. Donald Trump improved in every single metric, and Kamala Harris went down in every single metric. Now, I'm showing you guys an end card here. This right here is a thumbnail to a video from a guy named How to Beast. I listen to him every now and again if you're into working out and stuff like that. He's a pretty good channel, but of course, he doesn't really get political very often, but of course, he explains in this video here why it was that he ultimately chose to go vote for the Donald. And one of the things that he had said is that I saw him on podcasts, Theo Vaughn, Joe Rogan, and all these other guys' shows, Andrew Schultz. And I said to myself, hey, look, he actually sounds like a real human being. Where it is before, the only thing I saw was the stuff that I did not like about him. The podcasting gave former President Trump a brand new dimension. And of course, a lot of different people saw him a different way. Also, something else too, it also didn't hurt that Robert F. Kennedy, who had also made his rounds in the podcast circuit, it also does not hurt that Robert F. Kennedy would eventually come out and endorse Donald Trump and also become a part of his campaign team. Just simply saying that when RFK went on these podcasts and started talking about medical freedom, food freedom, and of course they eventually see him, eventually endorse former President Trump, and now he's working with him, that probably helped the Donald out as well, which is something else that the mainstream media is seriously coping and seething about. But about those metrics where Donald Trump improved with, well, let's go ahead and go to Steve Kornacki.
The election, but winning the popular vote, first time in 2 decades for a Republican. And how did he do it? He did it by transforming the Republican Party. It is now more diverse than it's ever been in modern times, and certainly much more than when Donald Trump first came on the scene 8 years ago. A lot of ways to look at this. How about this here? When it says pre-Trump, that's the last presidential election before Donald Trump started running. You got to go back to 2012 for that. Remember, 3 straight elections, Trump's been the Republican candidate. So pre-Trump, voters under 30 were going for the Democrats by 23 points. Folks with incomes under 50,000, 22 points for the Democrats. Folks without college degrees, 4 points for the Democrats. That's pre-Trump. What comes out of this election? Look at some of these shifts. The youth vote, that Democratic margin cut more than in half. Voters under 50,000, now a Republican constituency. Voters without a...
Did you guys see that metric under 30, how much the former president, now the new president-elect, did you guys see exactly how well he did there, how well he performed? Under 30. Republicans never win the below 30 category. They never win it. Now, guys, I've said this right before, that when I went to the Trump rally a few weeks ago, the town that I live in, the university, when I saw so many girls, especially white girls, younger white women, I realized something, that Donald Trump was, in fact, going to do much, much better. It was a confirmation of what I already knew. He was going to do much, much better with white women, especially young white women. Also, to go on top of that, when you say no tax on tips and you make that a part of your campaign slogan, and a lot of these girls, by the way, you run into in the town I live in, because guess what? They work at a lot of the restaurants as waitresses, and of course, some of these girls also cut hair. Yes, I'm pretty sure you guys are kind of picking up on the gist that, yes, Trump was going to, in fact, appeal, or he was at least going to appeal much, much more to the girls who actually work and are not thinking about abortion, which the media would make you think that that right there was what women really and truly cared about. But no, women cared about the money. But let's go ahead and look at the rest of this.
College degree. Look at that shift. Now a core Republican constituency. And then we can talk about race, ethnicity. This gets into that diversity I mentioned a minute ago. Check this out. Again, pre-Trump versus now. The black vote still overwhelmingly Democratic, but that's a 15-point shift. It used to be 87 points for the Democrats, down to 72. How about this? You've heard a lot about it this week. This is what the numbers look like. Hispanic voters were 44 points Democratic before Donald Trump. Now, basically a toss-up constituency, and Asian Americans, a 32-point shift there as well. That's what's happened to the Republican Party since Donald Trump became its standard bearer 8 years ago. This has been...
I'm pretty sure that every person in that little demographics, or that set of demographics that Steve was talking about, I'm pretty sure everybody had their paycheck in mind. They see, when I said cared about the money, what I mean is they care about how far their money can go, how much money they're making. They care about the price of stuff. I've said this right before. Women buy milk, eggs, bread. They buy groceries more than men. They see the bill. They see how much it is. They see how high it's gone up. And the mere fact that Donald Trump was able to get on these podcasts, it gave him additional exposure. Now, there was something else, too, that I wanted to point out, and that right there was the podcast that Kamala Harris chose to go on.
If you look at the average, not just the number of downloads, but then the social media plays on YouTube and other places that Trump did by hitting all of those mostly bro-friendly, skewing young male podcast platforms. I think the issue is not so much that the left, quote, needs a platform. There are a bunch of people on, Harris went on Call Her Daddy, right? All the smoke, a few of those things. What the left has to, what Democrats have to figure out is the fact that the way to talk to voters who are not our age, and the large swelling number of the segment of young.
The Call Her Daddy podcast got absolutely ratio when they had Kamala Harris on it. Charlemagne the God, his show, The Breakfast Club, only goes to one type of voter. All the smoke also goes to only one type of voter, whatever the hell it is, one with Matt Barnes. Black voters. She had to go on podcast to up her black support, of which, by the way, was actually down drastically, which I said it would be because nobody liked her. I've talked about this in other videos, especially when she went on the Shannon Sharp show. I mean, Shannon Sharp, Club Shay Shay, that guy actually had the nerve to call her auntie. It was pathetic. It was sick. All these episodes that she went on got absolutely ratio because she was that god-awful. So it doesn't seem to me like the podcasting game is working out too well for liberals either. Meaning it doesn't seem to me that conventional media nor the podcasting game is working out for them. You dig? But that right there also brings me to my final point of this video. You see, it wasn't just social media. It wasn't just the fact that Trump went on Theo Vaughn, Andrew Schultz. It wasn't just the fact that he went on Joe Rogan, which, by the way, he went on Joe Rogan very late, and Joe Rogan chose to endorse him literally the day before the election, which I thought was kind of messed up because he should have endorsed him the previous week, given all the information that Joe had. But like I've said before, I'm not a fan of Joe, never have been for multiple reasons. I think I've explained it before, but still, it goes back to that How to Beast video, which I'll be linking in the description box. I advise you guys watch the video all the way through because he voted for Biden, I believe, in 2020. He didn't vote in 2016, but he flipped his vote to Trump. You will see very, very clearly about 3 minutes into that video why it was that he chose Trump before he decided to tell you he was voting for Donald Trump. And yes, he does set it up almost like he was going to be a Kamala voter, but still, though, I advise you guys watch it all the way through, or at least the first 9 minutes. Fact of the matter is that former President Trump utilized social media like a pure genius. Former President Trump also took everything that the media threw at him and he threw it back at these people. And as you guys can obviously see by their facial expressions and their body movements, yeah, these people right here are pretty daggone salty about it. Now, before I close this video, I want to give you guys a bit of an update on how things are going to go this week, or at least for the first couple of days. My Veterans Day message is going to be out tomorrow. That video is also going to include some updates for the channel, just a direction I think we're going to be going in as far as overall commentary is concerned for next year. Also, to go on top of that, I'm also going to have a video out on Gear Issue 33, the crusty old vet, which is also going to be an updates video where I'm going to kind of give you guys a direction of where we're going there. And also to go on top of that, the videos that are going to be about the online left, they're going to be coming out on Tuesday because more and more information is coming in, which, by the way, forced me to halt the videos I had planned this weekend to talk about that. Let's just say that the updates were more than worth it. It's very important, especially because it, let's just say that it kind of confirms what I said the other day about the Democratic Party being dead. With that right there being said, guys, make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.